What's up, y'all? Erroneous here, back with another Raid Shadow Legends video. In today's video, boy, have I got a good one for you today. Brand new fusion that's coming out next week on Monday, kicking off on the 22nd, and it's gonna be an amazing fusion. I hope it's fantastic, but it seems like it's gonna be crazy. So let's get into it. All right, so we've got this new champion behind me, Granite Doorkeep. Could potentially be a meta champion for free-to-play players and low-spend players who are trying to get their hands on someone who can hit through Stone Skin. Oh my lord, this is going to be super exciting. Let me pull something up first before I go through his kit here. I just want to talk about what Plarium has to say about this champion. All right, so here we are. We've got a quick blurb. Next Monday, September 22nd, we're planning on launching a fusion event. So this is going to be a classic fusion, so it will be harder to come by for this champion as opposed to the summon, the fragment summon fusions. It's gonna be a dwarf, legendary, HP-based spirit affinity champion, and he's gonna be a nuker. So it says here, he's an arena first brawler designed to crack open buff heavy defenses and tear through Stone Skin stall teams. His aggressive kit brings consistent buff removal, bolstering his allies with powerful offensive buffs and a heavy hitting finisher to close fights fast. Granite also strips any crowd control debuffs except for Sheep from himself at the start of his turn, very similar to Fabian, which is extremely powerful. So if you pair both of them together, it's gonna be a match made in heaven, right? So giving him even more reliability against disruptive teams. Beyond the arena, Granite also holds solid in PvE potential. Of course, he's going to be fantastic then for the likes of Faction Wars and as well as Curse City or regular wave content potentially in PvE. So if you're a newer player, this is going to be someone you want to go and get. Just from reading this, because he's going to go through Stone Skin for arena, right? And that Stone Skin is super annoying. His multi-hit A1 makes him a strong pick for Fire Knight as well. Triple hitter is what I'm going to assume. While his A2 brings valuable debuffs and utility for Hydra. Also amazing for early and mid-game players. Attaching the document for Granite Doorkeep skills, render avatar, so on and so forth. All right, so let's take a look at Granite Doorkeep. Now this, let me just move myself out of the way here or just hide myself for a second so you could take a quick peek at him. So there's Granite Doorkeep, and then I'll also put somewhere around here his visuals art spinning around so you can see what he looks like. And on his first ability, You Are Barred. Attacks one enemy 3 times. Each hit has a 75% chance of removing a random buff from the target, which is pretty strong. Now the downside is it's not decreased buff duration, so high chance that he could get sheeped. Each hit will ignore 20% of the target's defense, and he has a buff debuff chance booked out to 100% chance of removing one random buff from the target. He is Spirit Affinity, so he's going to be great against all red affinity, especially the likes of Embreeze, for example. And then Geode Haymaker on his A2. Attacks all enemies, and before attacking, he places an increased accuracy buff on all allies for 2 turns, which is very strong. Something that your Marius does as well if you have a Marius, but if you don't have Marius, this guy could be great because he could put an increased accuracy on your whole team. And then that way, if you have secondary damage dealers like a bomber, then they'll have increased accuracy. Maybe you have an arbiter putting increased attack. And then if he doesn't kill them, then the bomber goes and kills the rest of the team. So really, really cool. So far, the kit's looking okay. Has a 75% chance of placing a decreased defense and a block buffs debuff on all enemies for 2 turns. Now, this is going to be amazing, absolutely amazing for Hydra. It could also be good for Chimera, if you think about it, because decreased defense and block buffs are 2 very strong abilities for boss content. It could also be good for regular clan boss as well, potentially. But of course, you might end up just using this guy in arena as a main damage dealer or using him in Hydra. This is going to be super big in Hydra though. Increased accuracy on your team, decreased defense and block buffs, and you can take care of potentially 3 trials or at least a couple of trials in Chimera potentially. So that would be huge. It does book down to a 3-turn cooldown, and the buff debuff chance boosts to 100% when he's fully booked. So not bad. So far he takes 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 books out of those first 2 skills. Now, Demolisher Blow attacks one enemy. Before attacking, removes all debuffs from himself and places a Shatter buff and a 30% increased crit damage on all allies for 2 turns. So he's putting a lot of buffs on your team. Increased accuracy, Shatter, and increased crit damage is very, very strong for PvE and PvP. Will ignore unkillable stone skin block damage buffs. Awesome. Also strong against the likes of Nias. If you want to go through Nias's A2 form, or secondary form rather, then you can use this A3 finisher blow to just kill him potentially. Maybe you have him go after your Marius or after your Embreeze. And then that way Marius can already place increased accuracy on your team. And then he goes and potentially kills the Nias after he places the block damage on himself. So there could be multiple ways you can build this guy so far based on his kit. Now the downside will be, of course, if he has low multipliers. If the target is not under any unkillable stone skin or block damage, this attack will deal 100% more damage and grants an extra turn if this attack kills an enemy. Also phenomenal because you have champions like Georgid, who is a Void legendary, who has this same capability. Now, the champion who is a mythical, Mezamel, doesn't grant an extra turn after she kills someone through their stone skin because she also has a damaging ability through stone skin, but she doesn't grant an extra turn if she kills an enemy. So this is very, very strong. This is obviously going to be his strongest hitting ability, but it's an HP nuker, and most HP nukers don't have crazy strong hits on their abilities. So they just don't typically have strong multipliers rather. Now, it could be strong. Who knows? I hope he's going to be strong. Now, in terms of this ability, it's on a 4-turn cooldown. The damage does book up by 20% additional. And the Shatter buff, if I go ahead and take a look at that, I'll talk about that really quickly with you. All right, so here we are, the Shatter buff. There's a weak and a strong version. It increases the champion's ignore defense by 7.5 or 15%. So that is pretty big. So placing an ignore defense on all of your champions for 2 turns is very strong on top of an increased crit damage. So all your champions are going to do more damage to the enemy team. And then you add on Helm Smasher, you add on the likes of Lethal Set or Merciless Set or Savage Set or even Stone Cleaver Set, and you're adding an additional damage to the team. So that's huge, right? Now it's a 15% Shatter buff. So he places the strong version, which means your champions are all going to ignore 15% of the enemy's defense, which includes himself, on top of his lethal set, which is 25%, because typically you want to put a damage dealer in Arena, Live Arena right now. The meta damage build is going to be lethal and stone skin as of right now for most of your champions. And putting a Shatter is going to add another 15% ignore defense on that lethal set. So you're already going up to 40% ignore defense. Very, very strong ability here on this guy. I hope he hits like a truck. That would be amazing, at least on this ability. If not on these two, at least on this ability. But even having this one, your Bard, the attacks one enemy 3 times, also strong against UDK, right? Because he's going to go, first hit goes to UDK, the second 2 hits go to the enemy. So this could be a very strong ability on his A1 as well. Now for his passive, we've got at the start of the turn, removes any fear, true fear, provoke, stun, freeze, sleep, and petrification from himself, and increases this champion's damage inflicted against targets with no buffs by 20%. So you're going to want him to go after a buff stripper. So you're going to want him to go after your Embreeze, after your Marius, who buff strip everybody if possible. And then if, God forbid, one of the enemies on the team do not have their stone skin removed, maybe you just target that one enemy with the Demolisher blow, and then everybody else can take care of the rest of the team. And then in his aura, he has a crit rate in all battles by 20%. So this guy could be disgusting, or he could be a huge pain. Because, for example, we do have another HP nuker that was brought into the game, but he could only be required through a collaboration event. So he's only a pay-to-win hero. And I believe he's in here somewhere. Let me just double check. No, it's Blade Master. It was one of the Blade Masters, I believe. I think it was like Xenogre, something like that. Let's see if I can find him, and I'll be right back. Okay, here it is. It's actually Fatalis Blade Master, and this guy is an HP nuker. He does do decent damage. He's barely ever used, but attacks all enemies, ignores 15% of the target's defense if this attack is critical, decreases the target's defense by 5%, and stacks up to 30%. It's on a 3-turn cooldown. This guy was supposed to be utilized for the long run, the long game, and basically he's a little bit slower going second champion, and he's pretty decent, but he's not insane. So the True Charge Slash attacks one enemy, ignores 50% of the target's defense, fills the champ's turn meter by 50% if the attack's critical. This is not the one that goes through Stone Skin. Here it is. Attacks one enemy, Wide Slash. Will ignore Strength and Stone Skin, increased defense, and ally protection. Also ignores 15% of the target's defense if it's critical. But the issue was he wasn't killing a lot of the enemies with this skill with one shot. Unless you have the most god tier gear possible with like a +4 in the high end game. Now, early game, mid game, late game, this guy puts in some work. Super end game, he's not nearly as good because everybody is just so tanky. He was taking forever to kill them. Now, he can also get random wins because of his shield, so he keeps on healing or like placing a shield on himself and then gets counterattacks and stuff like that. But I believe he gets some type of counter. The champion cannot receive critical... Okay, it's just he can't receive critical hits while he's under a shield buff. So I don't have this guy, but he is a decent champion. He's not crazy by any means, but he is decent. In terms of reviews, he's got a 2.9 in arena offense. So he's not really that great at all by super endgame players that are spenders. But like I said, this is a free champion. So you're going to want to go for this guy and at least get him on your account. Great for early game, great for mid game, great for late game. In terms of end game PvP, I don't know, only because his multipliers aren't there, but he's still going to be able to be that. I think he's going to be that person that you bring in as a secondary nuker and he finishes people off or just helps buff your team, maybe debuff their team and remove Stone Skin as well. Just another option to help remove Stone Skin and be a potential threat to those who have 1-turn Stone Skin or 2-turn Stone Skin, but they can't protect themselves. But for some reason, you couldn't remove their Stone Skin from them. And then maybe you can just pick them off with this guy. Like he could be good against someone like a Freya, for example. Most people put 2-turn Stone Skin on Freya, Fate Weaver, and then this guy comes in. Since he's green affinity, he could potentially one-shot Freya because most Freya are just really high resistance. They don't typically have incredible HP. They usually have a lot of defense. But since he's going to be ignoring a lot of defense with the addition of that Shatter buff, increased crit damage, and then you're going to put him in a lethal most likely with Stone Skin, he might actually just come in and smack her into the ground. So that's going to be how I would personally use him. I'm not going to be using him as my main damage dealer going last. He would probably, well, yes, he would go last. Not going first, I mean. He would go after my Marius or after my Embreeze and then hopefully finish people off. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. Could he go first? Yes, as long as he can smack incredibly hard. Then he could go first on my team. But I'm definitely going to go for this guy regardless of if he doesn't have high multipliers. And I think that I'm going to be building him up and utilizing him regardless of what anybody says. I do think he's going to be decent on most players' accounts. He just won't be like, if he has low multipliers, he won't be super meta for the end game players, right? The really end game players, top like 4,000 players in the game. They're probably not going to utilize this guy all that much unless he's crazy. So anyways, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. There's been no other champion that has been free to play rather, that can go through Stone Skin. The only other champion that was supposed to be giving this was the community champion Wixwell. Wixwell was going to potentially get an ability to attack and damage through Stone Skin, but unfortunately people didn't vote for the Wixwell to attack through Stone Skin. I, for one, did choose that because I wanted someone to attack through Stone Skin, but now I have Mezomel, so it is what it is. But now I could potentially bring this guy in too, and then he comes in, goes through Stone Skin, Mezomel goes through Stone Skin, you know, and gets a kill. So yeah, he could be very good paired with additional damage dealers. But anyways, that's gonna be it for this one, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on a video soon. Take care.